Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one, back with another one. This is the review two. We're going to talk about part two with the Etruscans and things like that nature. And yeah, we're going to come with it. We're going to come with it. Okay. All right. All right. You know how that goes. I had to get that windscreen off there. You already know what time it is. You already know that I had to get this out the way, of course, and get it set up for y'all and then read a little bit. We're gonna do part two and then there's part three to this. I'm not gonna show you all the crazy pictures. I'm gonna show you a few things and that's just it. Y'all a bunch of lame amateurs. Talking about industry this, industry that. Y'all lame. And I'm glad I didn't show y'all that nonsense. That's why the internet is stale right now. You know how it goes. Okay, let's get to it. Etruria, but the history of writing, we're gonna go in depth. So the history of writing, we talked about the white Greeks and things like that nature. We talked about the Etruscans. We're not gonna go into the graphical stuff. We're gonna just peel it. Okay. Get this screen real big for a minute. Okay. Get me out of the screen. Yeah, we talking the background. We talk about in those valleys, no need. So now we're talking about the Cretans, the Minoans or something like that. I think that's under that Etruscans when we talk about their writing. And we'll go back to this sooner or later. And then the Phoenician writing, how that goes, white Greeks, the Romans. We're going to leave the Romans alone because that's part of it. We're going to skim through that because I don't want to get popped here because you know how it's kind of graphic. I'm not going to go all the way down, you know what I'm saying? But we're going to show you the pictures and we're going to stop right here. So we're going to read this part. It says, it says the Eurasian invasion, the Latins, talking about the Eurasian invasion, talking about Europe's, call it Eurasians. That's what it says, right? When the last we left Etruria, we were um, we were mystified by the Etruscans' policy of not helping each other when the faced with a common threat. The incredible policy, of course, has a devastating effects. Moving ahead to perhaps 1100 BCE, it is about this time that the albino people, talking about the so-called white people, albino people, that's what this man calls it. Shouts out to realhistory.com. You can look at it. You can look this up on part one of Etruria. You got to look for this thing. I'll show you in a minute, and I'll show you where I got it from. We're gonna break it all down today, and yes, we're gonna go part three, whatever. It says the original black civilizations of Italy. They call the Etruscans. You want to go to part two, you see all the graphical stuff that you need. I'm just telling you, if you go on this website, you will know. That's why I'm getting this source from. There's other sources that can back this up too. People have different things. I haven't found it yet. Eventually, I will sooner or later. Then we'll go back to the things that we're saying. But the only reason I'm touching on this is part two, and it's just to see people. Yeah, to see people, the Temple of Ramses. He talks about all that. That's just a reference to this. If you see this in the green, so don't pay it no mind and things like that nature. So albino people from the Eurasian plains, now called the Latins, but later known as the Romans. Yeah, known as the Latin, later known as the Romans, the Eurasian. But that's what they call it. Yeah, that's some factual stuff. And then migrating these Latins may have accompanied the Hellenes into Greek, but then continue into Italy. But the nature of the early contact between the two peoples is unknown. But the later relationship as well is known to be one of the violence. Please remember that we are using the term Latins and Hellenes as a reference to Eurasian albinos as a conscious only. Yeah, conscious only. He said, I mean, convenience, excuse me, as a convenience only. That's what this guy is saying, convenience only. That's why they use the term Latins and Hellenes. Okay. Soon after the invasion of whites from Eurasia began a coalition of the original black inhabitants of Italy, Greece, and the Aegean Sea, the Aegean area. Yep, the Aegean area, Mediterranean, the Aegean area, formed a conglomeration called the Sea People. They boarded ships with all the belongs to the flat area, but we're gonna leave that alone for a minute, and we're just gonna leave that alone. So we're gonna leave that alone. So I know people are looking forward to that trial. I'll look at that in a minute because this ain't gonna take too long. Um, they said boarded the Barbers to see people, but they were boarded ships with the belongings and fled area. But those that stayed behind still had to deal with the white newcomers. The Etruscan settlements were frequently built on hill and the steeper better in the surrounding in the thick and so-called according to Roman mythology. But Rome, as may say, have significantly have been built by the Etruscans. They did in the Palatine Hill according to the Etruscan model. But that is, they began with a promotion of sacred ditch, but they proceeded to the walls. Okay, so we're going to talk about Etruscan people. I talked about these people before. This is back in 600 BCE. I've showed this on previous pre-records on my old stuff and things like that. So we're not trying to say anything. So hold on for a minute. So we got the Etruscan Antefex 500 BCE, 500 BCE, Antefex again, and we're going to stop right up in here. Yeah, it says Romans, but we're gonna stop right here. I'm gonna scroll down and we're gonna get through the nitty gritty. And 500 BCE and all that. You can look the rest of yourself, the graphical pictures because there's a lot. And I'm not gonna show you because YouTube's constraints with the system and their guidelines. I've got to follow that. 500 BCE and all that. I ain't trying to get popped on here. You know how it goes. So let's get back to me and explain. Now, this is part two, and we're gonna talk about part three, how it's gonna go. I gotta see how the things is gonna move. I'm gonna show you where I got it from. Part two is cool, and then that's where we got it from. So this website, I've had this been using this for like decades, and it's served me very well with this channel. And I learn a lot about different things, but it's more to it. They still digging. Other people's got different sources how they dig in information. You start seeing people coming out with the stuff on the history channels like over the last couple of years, and people are tired of the lies. The internet has gotten vaster and vaster. So that's the historical stuff that you see a lot on whatever. So I'm the only channel that talks about it. I go in depth on it, have my spin on it, but have our people spin on. But the thing is, if we're gonna go modern, that's what those people's called in the modern, ancient times, the current times we're in, the CE era that we're in now, because this is kind of our own history, seeing where do we stem from and all this stuff. But it's basic stuff, and it tells you what's what. But were these people perfect? Hell no. They did what they wanted to do, and it wasn't perfect. But you get used to it and understand that these people knew how to operate. It's a different world, but it's just you didn't have all this technology, all that, because they can't defend themselves a lot. I hit that by mistake. Sorry about that, but just bear with me with that because I don't want to hit the wrong thing because I don't want to get popped on here. You know how that goes. Yeah, I'm gonna skim down to these pictures because it's very graphical. I'm trying to get past that. And yeah, the Romans. I can talk about that, but it's graphical. Knowing YouTube, we understand that. We can debate that for hours and hours. So that's the Romans and all that. Yeah, the Celts and the Gauls. We know that. We're gonna skim through the last picture, the Pompey Wall. Y'all can see that. I gotta see what the Pompeii. We're gonna skip that. We was talking about Etruscans right here. So we're gonna go here. Let's see. Here. We're gonna go here. All right. In time, the Romans have learned how to build cities, but now it's a great competition for the power and territory. Wars rage, but the Etruscan, this is a zodiac thing, get off there. And you know how that goes. I got it. The notifications on. Excuse me for that. And but the Etruscan cities along the fight along the Romans can simply attack the annex of the individual cities, but divide and conquer. Was the order of the day, but disunity is further illustrated by the fact that the Romans concluded treaties with the individual Etruscan city and states rather than the whole. But the Etruscans reemerged as a local power during the 800 700 BCE, spread their trade to Corsica, Sardinia, Iberia, which is known as Spain now. It was called Iberia, and creating a powerful navy to guard their interests. Phoenicians and Etruscans became trading partners. See, they was trading partners for the Phoenicians way back in the day, and that's why the Phoenician right was so important in review one. In part one, all of part one, we'll go back to it and what I explain here, and then we're going to talk about part three in juncture. Now you can look at the rest of this yourself on real history www.com. The ancient, you can go find it, and you can go to Etrusca too. You can see all the graphical stuff. Can't post it on YouTube because they got the new policy. I don't know, because the old rules I would have got away with and read y'all and showed y'all the history and everything else. They wouldn't have cared. Life said they would have cared, but if it's educational, they wouldn't have cared. But now they care because they're so sensitive. New leadership. It's a whole nother story. I'm not going to get into that. I don't know if I want to do it on X though. That's the problem. That's the problem. And that's the graphical stuff that you can get. So Etruscans, and it's just like, you get into it and and that's the Phoenicians, and then the Etruscans became the trading partners, but the rivals in the exchange in goods and opportunities and raids with each and other. However, the situation changed after the whites of Greece, but has consolidated power to begin to expand into Western Mediterranean, but at about 7 BCE. But approximately 600 BCE, the Etruscans attacked the occupied areas of Latium and settled themselves in the city of Rome. From here, the influence of the Etruscan civilizations and art made itself felt into the entire Latin sphere. But their expansions soon collided with that of the Greeks, especially in the 6th century BCE, when Phoenician Greeks in Italy founded colonies along the coast of France, the Catalonia, and Corsica. This led the Etruscan to ally themselves with the Carginian, the Carginian Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were the Carginians. They were Phoenicians, though, those Hamites, but whose interests also collided with Greeks. But no, Phoenicians have planted trading posts in Africa and Sicily, yeah, right next to northern Africa and Sicily, and Sardinia and Iberia, known as Spain today. During 1100, 900 BCE, with the creating trading monopoly. See, it was called Sardinia and Iberia at the time, but then now it's known as Spain, and I forget the other places what it's called, different names now. They are relatively free during the period of the civilizations were suffering from the Dark Age. During that period, because of the invasion of whites from Eurasia, this is a statue riding a the hippocampus heading missing and Vulcan near, and this is 500 200 BCE. Um, you see the Etruscans right here, of course, and then the 500 BCE. Oh shit! Let me let me get this out there. So, tomb painting. That's all we're gonna get. We're gonna stop it right here. We ain't gonna read the rest of it. We're gonna read this part right here. In 500 BCE, the Battle of Atalia, which took place at the coast of Corsica between the Phoenicians and then allied the Etruscans and Carthaginians, but the Punic, Etruscan, the Punic and Etruscan fleet of the 120 ships defeated the Greek force of 60 ships. The nearby colony, Alelia, now is known Illyria, was taken over by the Etruscans, but Corsica was shared by the Carginians and the Etruscans, and the Carthage retained the Sardinia. But this led a new distribution of power in the Western Mediterranean Sea through the Battle of No Clear Winter. But the Carthage of managing to expand in the sphere of the influence and the expense of both the Etruscan and the Greek. The Etrusca saw itself in the regulated the northern Tyrrhenian Sea. Yeah, Tarhini Sea from the first half of the 5th century, and then the new international political situation meant in the beginning of the Etruscan decline after losing their southern province. That's what you see over here, 600 BCE. That's an Etruscan head that you saw in one of my old videos, and we talk about them Mediterranean. So I'm gonna switch it off on here. I'm gonna scroll down. We're gonna be done with part 2 just a second. It ain't too long on it because if you go see it for yourself, you already know. I'm gonna skim past the tomb, and we got the Etruscan 400 BC, 400 300 BC, the same head you saw in the beginning. Yeah, Pompeii. We ain't gonna do that because that's graphic. It's too graphic. And then you got vendor socks, and then you got the Gauls, Celton, the Gauls, right? We talk about that. So we talk about it a lot, because the Huns and all this stuff, and then I gotta see how graphic and the Trajan, um, all this stuff in the heads. So I gotta see, and then they say fake bronzes and all this other stuff debate. Yeah, I'm not gonna go in depth because it gets racial and all this stuff. Pope Benedict in German. You can see it for y'all can see for yourself. So what are we gonna go with? We're gonna go with the I've read the Celts and the Gauls before. It's no need. I'll do a whole nother topic on that. Just the Celtics and the Gauls, but it's in the Etrusca, So we're gonna skim through number 2 entirely, so we're not gonna get into no confusion. So yeah, we're gonna talk about the Gauls in part 3. So we will talk about part 3 right now. I gotta see how much time I got, and his statue's kind of graphic in the beginning, but we'll skim through it fast and we talk about oh boy. And it's also in part 2, Constantine and all that. Oh, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I think. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Not too bad. We can look at this whole thing. Okay. It's not too bad. Let's see right here. So the Gauls we talked about, but it's also in part 2. You can read the rest of Celtic Gaul, the history of that. I don't want to get into that. I'll get into that later. Sometime in the future. I'm not gonna do that. That's a separate thing because it's in the Etrusca thing and all that. So we're dealing with the Etrusca, we're dealing with the peoples. So you know what happened to them, but the ancient BCE era, the BCE era, but the new invaders have migrated into Western Europe from the east and pushed the remaining indigenous peoples south. These new people were mainly Celts. That's what they say, Celts, who have been pushed out of their Central European lands by the invading white Germanic tribes. By now, the original people have accepted the rule, but the conquering Romans. But through the acceptance was uneasy. But as a rule, they expected. But that was almost a constant warfare between these two people. The peoples of the Western Celts, known as Gauls. Some people pronounce them as Gals. It's actually Gauls. That's a whole nother topic. I'm not going to get into pronunciations on that. But the Eastern Celts, or most people call them Celts, but it's really Celts. I won't call them Celts, were the same people as with the ancient people of the Europe. Modern races have sought the poetry themselves, white people, but the famous marble statues, Dying Gaul, is fake. Just as the statue of Versin, okay, is Vercingetorix or something like that, Vercingetorix, that was put by Napoleon III in 1865, and see the photo below. Yeah, we see. and we're not going to get into that. The dying Gaul, they try to say that's fake. Okay, that's what they're saying with this picture right here. So we're going to skim through that, and then Julius Caesar commemoration book. We're going to skip that, and then they talk about this guy right here. I think his name is Verse. Ver. I think it's Verging. Is it Verge or King's King Troxic? I can't even say. I won't say Verge. Verge. This guy right here, and I talked about him before. In pre-records and things like that. This guy right here, he's very important. That's a picture of him, and then they talk about the Gauls and all that. I'm not gonna read most of it because I think y'all heard most of it pre-record. But if you want to, like I said, I told you it's real history www.com and talks about world history and things like that. So and then there's Constantine, and then talks about his story, and that's pretty much it on part 3. So part 3 is basically the Gaul side. I didn't want to get into the Celt history because that's so long, because that would take up too much time. I'm not trying to make it as long as it can be, but you know what I'm saying? But that's just me personally. And I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, but we're going to go back where it all began. So, oh shit. I'm being goofy right now. The world civilizations. Okay, we're gonna go. This is where I want y'all to find if you share. Okay, let me get out the screen for a minute, and voila. See, right up in here, we just talked about Etrusca, right? Go to this original black and then go to part 1 from review. If you saw the review, I talked about this in the Etrusca one. Now, the word I was looking at is number 2. That's what we talked about, number 2, right? And I'll show you where number 3 was. Number 3 was, right? See, number 3, it gets to the tail end, right? They only got 3 chapters of this, okay? And that's all I got to show y'all, that part. And then the history of writing, we talked about the same thing. This is part 2, and this is the final part, of the Etruscan history and things like that nature. You get to understand that this came from the same website I just showed y'all, right? But you got to understand the history of writing. The Etruscans' writing is very different than everybody else's writing. It's complex. It's hard to research. Like my man said in the previous, and we always go back to the same course. So we're going to go. I'm going to show you real quick what I'm talking about and explain it. One's is new to this channel or whatever. And you get to know what's what. So, history of writing. It's the dog. Shut the fuck up sometimes. That's why I can't do no live streams like that with this song, with this particular microphone. I just can't do it. Can't do it, people. That's why I had to shut my door. So damn loud. Ain't got no concentration. Makes it hard for me to record. Now, we talked about this in part 1. It's pretty cool, right? But you get to know that's the strange writing. And it says, like, and then we talk about the Phoenician writing, the Phoenician alphabet. We talked about that. And then the white Greeks, we talk about their writing. So the whole purpose of looking at all of this, it matters in history. So, and I'm gonna stop sharing for a complete bit. And that's it. That's all I got. And hope y'all enjoyed it, whatever. But that's the history of the Etruscans. So when you talk about people that's gotten wiped out, conquest by the other peoples of the nations of the world, that's what you're gonna see. You're gonna see things that clearly that you see is what it ought to be. So when you understand that in the Etruscan history is very least talked about, just like the Indus Valley, it's a lot of histories that I explain why I talk about them so much. I like them because it's different. You talk about what's what, and I stay on that side. It's easy to talk about the Moors all day, but there's other dark nations out there besides different people, different this. Everybody blend in wars and warfare. It's easy to talk about, right? But when you talk about the Americas that much, it gets one sided. I'm just gonna say Aboriginals was there first and way been a long time ago. That don't mean they're the first people. Yeah, well, they're the first people to populate in that side. Yeah, that side of the world. They was on this side at one time in the Eastern world, then they populated on the West. The West ain't always first. That's cap. Look at the time zones. It don't make sense. When people call themselves indigenous people, it don't make no damn sense. That's false. Because we know time is somewhat man-made. Yes, it's true, but you got to understand the time zones don't make sense. Get what I'm saying? Mathematics and all that matters. It's always going to lean towards these. It will never be the West. That's that utilitarian nonsense, aka narcissism, that people have, and that's that slave-minded mentality. That's why I don't agree everything in this country that's utilitarian, and I see it all the time. This blue pill utilitarian concepts ruin a lot of historical teachings because you're blocked by it. We was taught this as children on down, and on television and everything else. I read the library and do my own research, and this I got it online, and it's just the closest to it. And there's other sources you can get books to back this up, and it's so much out there, and people still searching and researching. It's so much sources out there. It's kind of tainted right now because everybody tries to say they're gonna scrub it off. They're not gonna scrub it off. People just don't care for it. But that's the true history. But I don't debate people about history. What's what? I don't believe in that narrative. See, everybody's on this utilitarian narrative. I'm gonna keep saying it and to wake y'all up. That's what it is out there, and that's what's killing people. Your brain cells is out of there. You know what I'm saying? But that's it. Shalom to the people of Israel and the Gentiles. Until next time, and I hope y'all enjoy this. This is review 2. We talk about the Etruscan histories, part 2 and 3, and explain. You can find this on the website. You can see the graphical stuff in part 2 and 3. Well, less on 3, but 2 it has a lot of erect stuff. I ain't gonna show that on here. It's erotic, you know what I'm saying? It's a little erotic, but I'm just saying be careful what you wish for. But that's historical stuff. I can post it anywhere on the platform if they allow it. But it's very hard to understand what type of platform we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very graphical on other areas, but I'm just saying the internet is just so minute and utilitarian now. They done messed it up to the game, and that's what's killing everything. So with that, until next time, and I'll talk about a different subject matter of the historical stuff, and we're gonna talk about certain things, but I'll let y'all know in the meantime. Probably on a vlog stream or something. We'll see my situation is, but I'll let y'all know. So with that, I'm signing off and I'm out.